Thank you and good day everyone, and welcome to our webinar for today. This is part of an ongoing webinar series which is available to our HRA, EWPA and TSHA member companies, and we're really pleased to bring this to you. Overarchingly, it's an opportunity for us to provide some information which allows your businesses to navigate current challenges and future challenges and position your businesses favourably well into the future. So today's webinar topic is a technology webinar. In particular, we're going to be talking about business continuity, and there's going to be a bit of a cybersecurity flavour to that, and looking at those implications that cybersecurity can have in maintaining your business operations. We're fortunate today to be joined by Jason LeGuier, but before we start, I just want to acknowledge that as part of the ongoing work that the HRA does, we're very pleased to announce that Point of Rental has come on board as a technology and innovation sponsor. One of the things that we've recognised at the HRA is the importance that innovation places in providing our membership companies with an opportunity to differentiate themselves and indeed give greater value to their business operations. So we're really pleased to have Point of Rental on board, supporting the work that we do in bringing innovation to the hire and rental industry. A bit of housekeeping for you before we get started. So the Q&A function is enabled. If you have any questions, please just click on the link at the bottom of your screen and type up any questions, and we'll endeavour to answer those questions. If we don't answer them during the course of the webinar, we'll try to circle back and get back in contact with you and answer those questions. Also, we have the chat function enabled. That is there so that if you are experiencing any technical difficulties, just type something up on that chat window, and Linda and or Sally, who are working in the back end, will try and address those issues. I will also mention that this webinar is being recorded, as all of our other webinars, and at the conclusion of this webinar, it will be available via the membership site on each of the association's websites. And finally, a little bit of a disclosure. We're well aware that over the past few months, we've had a lot of webinars and a lot of Zoom calls. So we're going to try something a little bit different today. We're not going to be so PowerPoint heavy. We're going to endeavour to be a little bit more conversational and organic in how this comes across. Bear with us, there's probably going to be a few little hiccups, but listen, we're keen to make sure that the content we provide is as engaging as possible. Rest assured, if there's any information that you want after the webinar, you can get in contact with us, and either the national office or indeed Jason will be more than happy to assist you with further information. Okay, so today's topic is absolutely about business continuity and with that cybersecurity flavour. And we're really, really fortunate to have Jason LeGuier, who's the CEO of Hotline IT, join us. Jason brings over 25 years of experience to the table, exposure with some of Australia's leading companies. He's had experience with the OEM side, high company sides, and indeed a lot of experience in technology consulting as well. So Jason's very much a familiar face at the HRA, EWPA, TSHA events. He's a regular contributor to Hire and Rental News. Also, he's a regular attendee at the National Hire Conference. And I believe there's a significant number against that, and Jason might share that with us later on. And finally, Jason is also very much a well-regarded mentor for our Young Professionals Network program as well. So very, very fortunate to have Jason on board. Welcome, Jason. And listen, just to kick things off, we're going to have a bit of a poll, and that poll is going to pop up in a second. And it's anonymous, but really we're just asking, have you or someone you know ever had a Facebook, Instagram, email, any sort of digital account been breached or hacked? Just simple yes or no. Keen to see what comes up. In the meantime, Jason, business continuity. Let's have a little bit of a chat about what do you define as business continuity and what is it not?
Yeah, hi Nicholas, and thanks for having me along. First thing, happy November to you. The second thing is, look, I think from business continuity, we all know what we've experienced over the past 9 months or so, and what has brought into sharp focus is that there are things outside of our control, and as we move our businesses along to become more dependent on technology services, If we get interrupted and we can't be in our place of work or something happens to them, how do we continue to operate? So most people have thought about and talked about their server going down, for example. So we keep our servers up to date. We know about power outages, so we provide UPSs. I'm not sure many people really thought about what would happen if you're not allowed in your building. The building's there, everything functions, but you're not allowed in it. And that's part of the business continuity side. And I think important part we need to talk about, Nick, is the how that already existed, that requirement, particularly in the space of cybersecurity. If your systems were compromised and you couldn't run your business applications, how would you continue to operate while you recovered or while you moved on from that problem?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so keen to get into that. And we might just have a look at any of the poll results if they've come up now. Yep, so listen, there's significant people have had, are aware of things that have happened with them. To be honest, I'd expect that to be a little bit higher, to be honest. I certainly know people that have had Facebook breaches. Get those messages in my Messenger app that say, hey, I've seen you in this video, it's very interesting. But listen, out of the people that are on the call, there's already a significant number that know of these sorts of breaches. So listen, Jason, I might hand over to you in terms of running through your slide decks, and we'll talk through and see how we go.
Yeah, sure. I think first things first. I think that demonstrates that reinforces for me. There are people who know they've been breached, and there are people who don't know they have been breached. So
yeah, absolutely.
Not something we talk about a great deal, but there's I think it's very prevalent. People who might have had their systems compromised.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think
go.
Kicking that off, I was going to say I think business continuity. Where I wanted to start and have a chat with you about was to get people to think about, did you have a business continuity risk assessment? Did you have a business continuity plan? We talk about, in IT, we talk about disaster recovery, and that's really a specific part of business continuity. So you've got data backup for data protection. Yeah. You've got disaster recovery. How do I respond from a disaster? But in the meantime, while you're recovering, how do you continue to operate? And so that becomes a big umbrella. And so, I'd be interested in people just thinking about, did you have one? Did it include the impact of a pandemic? We know businesses that did have that. From a risk assessment point of view, I wonder how people's minds have changed in terms of likelihood and consequence. I'm not sure. There wouldn't be many of us who predicted this or catered for this kind of risk magnitude. And then the cybercrime element, the similar impact, I think is what we should talk about.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly interesting, given what's happened in 2020, that, even from the HRA National Office perspective, we had documentation in place because of a previous physical incident within the office, which the National Office flooded at the beginning of 2019. And so we had things in play, and we had done a lot of work around being able to operate in separate premises whilst a physical site was being recovered. But what we really hadn't considered was just being not allowed to go into work, and in fact not having someone work from an alternate site with everyone in the same room, but having everyone working from multiple sites, all external from the office. So that was it was an interesting time for us. So.
And I think there's many ways that can happen, and that's really the heart of what we're talking about is your premise flooded absolutely kicks into place in continuity. A fire in the building, the fire alarm going off, having been sent home, power outages in the local area, your local PCs not being able to operate, or your phones being down. Businesses traditionally, and I've worked in them for a lot of years, where we would go home. If it was 3 o'clock and the power went out, we just lost productivity for the rest of the day. Short-term problems though. A flooded office is a bit greater, and many years ago, before I could grow a fabulous mustache, we had a small monitor fire in our office down in Melbourne, And we had to get it clean. That the fire didn't do any damage, but the molten plastic from the monitor spread throughout the entire office and it covered everything. And we weren't allowed into the building for a week. And we were a distribution business at the time, very physical business, warehouse, sending stock around, and we weren't allowed into the building. So we didn't know who had ordered from us. We didn't know who to call back. These things are real. The pandemic just is a new example of why these things are important.
Yeah, and if we look at it from the perspective of, say, our high members, traditionally they're very physical businesses. There's physical yards with physical equipment that has to be moved and recovered. I think there's some discussion we can have around, what does a cyber incident look like? If they're going to be working, if you're going to have office staff working from anywhere, what does that look like? Keen to sort of discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the really, I know this is maybe a little bit dry for some people, but the thing I find really interesting about this is I think this is all real, Nicholas. I don't think this is a push in a direction we're already going. And so if we think about a hire yard, and I do know them really well, the yard operations, cleaning a piece of equipment, putting it on a truck, that's very physical, and that's not going to change. But the entire operations you could be done from anywhere. You could answer the phones from anywhere. You could do debt collection. You can put a hire contract in. You can print it off. I could print it remotely in the yard. You can have all sorts of systems going backwards and forwards, even with the systems you're using today. That means that if somebody doesn't need to come into your office, or if that's not allowed, as was the case in Melbourne, you can still continue to operate by doing all the things you normally do, just with the yard being able to function outdoors, moving equipment around if that was possible.
Yeah. And I guess from an operational perspective, one of the things that was starting to come up is the ability to work effectively from home, but also let's talk about security as well. There's implications with that.
Yeah, and I think what's happened in terms of working from home is a lot of people had the ability to access their email on their mobile phone and access, in some cases, some of their systems and documents. But it's the full gamut of processes. It's the ability to talk to our colleagues, the ability to get countersigned information, the ability to transfer phones to people, not just resort to mobile phones. That's a poor substitute. Our ability to say, yeah, look, I'll transfer you to the yard right now. And so in terms of transitioning to that need to work from anywhere space, it needs to include all of the things that we do. So, in my view, the days of that traditional on-premise PABX are actually long gone. I know that it'll take time for them to weed out of our everyday existence, but modern phone systems are in the cloud. They're cheaper. They're much more capable, and they provide somebody working in any environment to be properly connected and transfer everyone else. All of your business systems, all of those things should exist now in a way that mean you can function. You can have debt collection being done by somebody in Bathurst for a hire company that's based in Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne. Wouldn't make it.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned it, and I haven't told you this yet, but about half an hour before we hopped on for our pre-chat. So if I go backwards a little bit, we moved from a traditional on-site PABX to a hosted as a service solution. And we did that off the back of our flooding of 2019. But about half hour before we went to hop onto the call, someone was doing something in the office and they tripped a circuit. And that circuit knocked out our phone system. It didn't knock out the internet, but it did knock out our phone system. And so for about 5 minutes, we had nothing there and we were looking at what we do. And the simple solution was, okay, everyone, switch to your soft phone client. Phone calls can still come in. You can transfer phone calls. Really easy to do. So it was fortuitous and also nerve-wracking. That happened 30 minutes before we're supposed to go live. But nevertheless, there's real power in being able to understand how to transition quickly and effectively.
Oh, absolutely. And think about something like you've got a planned event like today. What about if your car didn't start in the morning and you couldn't get to the office to do the webinar? How would you continue to operate?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the security side, what I found has been a significant shift that we all need to be aware of is we've had to do things quickly, correct, and we've done the right thing. Our guard drops a little bit, or our risk tolerance raises. So what happens is that we tend to do things we would have otherwise scrutinised. So, for example, if we enable everyone to work from home, we enable our firewalls and we enable our systems and we relax our security, or I would say we open our security, but businesses have had to relax their security. If you can work from anywhere, how does the system know it's actually you? Right? And they're things that, without going through the detail as such, they're the things we now need to review. And I know that you've got a challenge with Vodafone at the moment. If you're using multi-factor, how would you verify your MFA on your phone that's currently not working?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that it's actually really interesting as well, because so for me, the phone that I use for my work is a bring your own device, and this is far more prevalent now that people will businesses are allowing the bring your own device philosophy. So it's my personal company phone that I bring along. But the fact that I can bring my own device and potentially my own laptop and everything like that, that probably uncovers a few security issues to be talked about, because you talked about softening of the security, and in this sort of time of allowing people to use their own laptops or use their own mobile phones. What are some of the things we need to be looking at to maintain the security of our systems?
Look, I think it's really important. And again, what's happened is only making us talk about it. It hasn't changed it. So bring your own device. Again, businesses generally think about things like securing the endpoint. They talk about antivirus. They talk about extra security, PIN numbers. I won't put you on the spot, but a lot of businesses, do they think about that with bring your own device? Do you actually enforce good corporate governance and good corporate policy across bring your own devices, not just for your mobile phone, but who used their own PC during the last 9 months for work? Who use their own tablets? And what security have we got around those devices now? Who's using their own home Wi-Fi? Who knows that they should secure the Wi-Fi, change the admin password, not enable things to come in, use WPA encryption? So again, it's that risk assessment side for me that this is the transition everyone was going to go on, but we would have done it deliberately. We would have assessed it. We would have got some help. We've had to do it fast. I think it's really important now to clean up. I think the other thing related to that transition of how we're working is we're not just using one core system anymore. We're starting to use more and more services like Slack or Trello or Monday.com or Smartsheets, or there's a million of them. I often walk into businesses and ask them how many are you using, and they think, with very few, 3 or 4 or 5 maybe, and I stopped counting at 50. But I've never found a business that's not using less than 50. I know that will surprise everyone, but if I started going through Adobe and all of the other products that you use that all now have online links, you'd be amazed at how many online accounts you have. And that's that transition we've got to start navigating. Yeah,
and a classic scenario for that is that someone in a branch has a small project that they're going to run, and they don't want to do a big project flow, Gantt chart on that or anything like that. So they just use Monday.com to do a quick one with a few stakeholders. They pop it on their phone. They say, "Hey guys, pop it on your phone. Here's the group," and away they go. And I guess one thing it sort of talks to is that having robust IT policies and auditing those policies is one thing. But I know you're a champion of this. Is one of the other things which is really significant is awareness for operators, being aware of the risk that can be posed. Yeah, I think that's the one of the most important thing is IT systems are inherently very secure. We think that IT systems let us down. They just don't. The weaknesses now, the vulnerability in our business is organic. It's not digital. We've probably all seen that one, but what a great slide. Yeah.
Our businesses, even our home computers and what Windows build into, Microsoft build into Windows and what's built into your average routers are all quite sophisticated.
Mm.
They're only as good as we allow them to be,
Yeah.
which is why so much of security now is around awareness and training and education.
Yeah.
You can have the most secure building. If you don't lock the front door, all of your defenses are rendered useless. And that's it's a really important part of things moving forward.
Yeah, and definitely we're seeing, say for phishing attacks, for example, or phishing, definitely see that the emails that are coming through that are asking you to click on a link, they're coming more and more convincing. Like I know personally, there's been times when I've come close to clicking on something that looks to be gone from my bank, looks legitimate, and it's just hovering over that link and seeing that it's not going to a bank website, or it kind of looks like a bank website and you're not quite sure. And they're the most tricky ones, and it's always a case of erring on the side of caution. But,
look, I'm not ashamed at all to admit it.
Yeah.
I'm certified and trained in the space,
Mm.
and I haven't fallen for one in a while, but last one was about 18 months ago. Hit me at the right time via the right vector, with the right messaging, brand new environment that I was in, and I knew once I'd keyed it in, momentary lapse of judgment. Type your password in, hit enter, and then I went, wait a minute, and I looked up and the padlock was unlocked. Went, oh,
Yeah.
really? And so I rang IT, look, locked my account, my fault. That's another password in the bin. So, again, being aware that we are the weak link is really important. I think the reason that we need to be to think this way is that I think some people still think of cybercrime as dark and an art. It's actually a business, and I think most people I hear, whether I talk to about this sort of stuff, they see phishing as a filter, not a security issue. They see it as spam. They don't see it as crime. So the reason you get so many phishing emails and so much spam is because it's highly effective. I don't want that point to be missed. The reason you get so much of it is because it works. And so a lot of these organizations are very sophisticated. They have business plans, they have help desks, they provide startup packs to little small people around the world who want to start their own little cybercrime venture. And they just work on weight of numbers. And so they adapt. I don't know if anyone's seen, there's been two really good ones out. One that was an ATO one, and one from MyGov around. There's been a couple around vaccine, but there was one really, really good one about MyGov and funds for COVID. They adapt very, very quickly to take advantage of opportunity. They do SWOT analysis. What are the opportunities and threats and weaknesses that they can exploit to extract money? This is a business venture. Right? These are highly sophisticated businesses, just as good as we are. The other thing I mentioned is that I talk to most people about is in terms of size, that industry is more than the financial returns out of cybercrime is more than the entire porn industry and the entire drug industry combined. And so I just say that in terms of imagine what you would invest in that kind of operation if the returns were so lucrative. And that's the environment we're dealing with. So I'm not trying to scare anybody and say there's some guy in a hoodie out to get you. This is a business venture. They sell Panadol and they cause the headache. Right? So they're designed to cause disruption, to interrupt your business so that you cannot pay money, so you cannot earn money, and then ask you for a contribution for them to give you back your business. That's really the business model.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned to me in conversation as well that they have really effective and helpful help desks and tech.
One of the things that's really sophisticated is they adapt. Again, this is smart business. They adapt. They know we put in place processes now so that you don't make mistakes, right? So I'm sure everyone listening has got a policy internally. You're not going to get caught, because what happens is if you get an email for a change of account, you call the organisation and verify it externally, and you do all those right things that you've been trained to make sure that you're verifying it. Many of the organisations that do this, the main one, or one of the really big ones out of Russia, very large professional organisation, they provide voice actors and an entire help desk to their customers, right? Their customers with a small business.
Yeah.
They can provide Australian voice actors with automatic processing within the transaction. So I'll send you a spam email, you click on it, an Australian voice will immediately call you and say, hey, look, I've just sent you an email. Just want you to know we've got very strong security protocols. And so I wanted to call you to verify that it was real. And they will give you the information. We're all trained to say, well, I'm not giving you anything, you tell me. Because and that's how you link this exploit and this fraud to the broad spectrum phishing. If they can get into your email, that's not where the value is. They want to learn, they want to understand, and they want to inject themselves in those transactions so they can extract money out of those transactions without you knowing that you're there. So many companies now being caught thinking they're doing the right thing, and just being caught with their own processes.
Yeah, and can you sort of talk to us a little bit around the approaches that they use? Because so you mentioned it's not just about getting that initial breach. That there's greater value later on down the track. So what are some of the, I guess?
Yeah, so I think there's really two kinds. There's a data mining approach or broad spectrum. So they're the ones that we don't really take a lot of notice of. On the dark web, the databases are quite valuable. So and not, your identity, I'm sorry to say, Nicholas, you're not very valuable.
Yeah.
But you might be worth about $35 on the dark web.
Yeah. My wife said $40. So it's
I tell you what, 100,000 of you now we're starting to talk about some serious coin. So if I can start collaborating or collecting a bunch of information with some email addresses and some identity and some personal information, I can roll that up into a database for sale. Now I can make some serious money. And again, I really want everyone to have that business mindset to this. So that because that drives everything. If there's no value in it, they're not going to do it. They're only going to do things that result in money. So why they sell those databases is that then, just like Facebook and LinkedIn, they data mine that. And so a more sophisticated organization will mine that information through marketing, just like we would all do. They'll identify the customers they want to understand. Let's say I know a lot about the rental industry. They might look for rental industry companies that are specifically 50 to 150 employees that I've got contact details for somebody in a mid-management level. I've got credentials for. Then I try and get into that organization. Once I'm in, I know the behavior and I know when the CEO is going on leave, what their policies and procedures are. And that's a more targeted attack. So you got one leading to the other, right? So there's the data mining side that leads to this sophisticated marketing to target businesses of a certain type. They don't know who you are, or they don't know why you're valuable. They just know your kind of business, and that kind of business probably turns over 20 million, probably can afford $100,000 in a ransom.
Yeah, listen, the immediate thing that springs to mind when you're describing all of this is that if we're thinking of them as a business, is they have divisions. So to me, it sounds like they've got a B2C division. They've got
absolutely.
A B2B division, which is targeting, say, SMEs. And then there's been a number of Australian companies that have had some breaches recently, which are larger corporates, and that's the corporate side of their business. And
I hear about the corporates. So the one of the largest ones, based out of Russia. Let's say they got their start in exploitation, but they became so good at it that doesn't scale. That was too hard. They've now, let's say, gone legitimate, and they sell those business services to others, to franchises. And so, as I said, they have marketing departments, they have branding departments, they have a bunch of different software with support desks. And so I'm not saying any of this to scare anybody. I'm trying to really just make it real, that this is a business impact, and that exists. So a pandemic exists, this exists, fires and floods exist, and this is where it all ties back to security and business continuity. One thing I wanted to mention is how that business model is changing. It used to rely on us to download something and run it and encrypt all of our data. We adapted and we said, okay, you know what's really important? Backups. We need to make sure we've got a backup. I'm sure everyone listening says, yep, I was just thinking that. What they've adapted to now is to try to get in and wait, find your backups. They understand that if they can detonate your backups, they have a far more significant opportunity. So they know that, they coach that. And so we talk about 3 E's: exfiltrate, so they copy your information. That's very dangerous. Then they encrypt your information, stop you accessing it, and then they extort you. So they're the 3 E's: copy, exfiltrate, encrypt, extort. And so the model there is to say to you, I've got a copy of your data. I promise I won't release the data if you pay me $100,000.
Yeah.
If you don't, they will send you something, or there's many cases, but that I personally know of. But for example, if you say, look, we don't make much money, they'll send you a copy of your financial report saying, well, according to your last financial report, you made $1.2 million last year. I don't think 300,000 is out of the question. And so you've now got, it's now more, or you've now got 24 hours before this appears on the dark web. So again, got to have a business approach to this stuff.
Yeah. And so just, I was going to say, I know we've gone and talked about, the ways they operate, and I think we're going to come out the other side and have a bit more of a chat around, some practical things as well. But just to humour me as well, I think you've got a slide which sort of shows, you mentioned I was worth about $35 on the dark web. Have you got a slide that sort of shows typical values of some of this stuff?
I do, mate. Sorry for scrolling through so quick, but I did copy a few things in. So there's this is Australian data. I don't present US data. So your driver's license is worth about $20 if we can get hold of that. Your email address is worth somewhere between 50 cents and $10. They usually can buy a pack. If you can get credit history and phone numbers and all that sort of information, that's worth between 40 to 200. And so you can get, I can get a pack where I might get your driver's license and your email and password and phone number and credit card information, and that might be $35 to $45.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, to talk about this, is I'm just trying to make people understand the reality, so that the from a risk assessment point of view, likelihood and consequence, I'm explaining likelihood. And so this is around, this isn't something that happens to people. This is something that happens all the time. But that's what things are worth.
Yeah, and I'll look at this, for example, and this is all very much related to personal information.
Yep.
And from what you've told me, they sell this in databases, and then then it's having access to your company information, seeing your financials, and being able.
No, so what's the weak link in a business?
Me.
Right. So what information do I want to get into that business?
My information.
Exactly.
Got it.
Let me draw your attention to one down here: stolen gaming accounts.
Yeah.
I don't know what percentage of people have gaming, but usually that's one that comes up when I do a deep web scan or dark web scan of their emails. That's one that comes up very frequently, the likes of Zynga and other gaming sites.
Yep.
We use a lot of online accounts. We don't use a lot of online different passwords. I know people are clever. They have 3 different passwords, and you've got one for your financial institutions, one for your work, and one for everything else, right?
Yeah.
But this is just a daisy chain. So it's a starting point. Get hold of you gaming, see where else I can go with that. Maybe I can get into your Gmail. Maybe I can get into your Microsoft Online account. Maybe onto your Facebook, see who your friends are, etc., etc. So that's why the individual's information is worth a few dollars. They know that leads to what they're trying to do.
It's the the key into that door. And yeah, I was going to mention it later on, but I think it's worth mentioning now for a bit of fun. We did myself and Jason did a lookup on a few email addresses and scanned the dark web for for their existence in databases. I had a really old Gmail account, showed up on a number of databases, and the ones that were showing up on were pretty much, I think there was a word with friends sort of a thing.
Yep.
Somehow that they'd gotten that one. And the other one is that you do see sort of larger, well-known online presences that have security breaches, and I think LinkedIn was one of them. You've got Adobe up here as one of them, and sometimes it's about these online presences having a breach. But I guess if it comes back to me, the user again, it kind of leads into, well, what's my approach to security of passwords? What are my practices in terms of refreshing my passwords? How do I keep
right? And so look, just on that quickly, that's the database and target kind of model and the upstream issue. So you can be fantastic with your own credentials with work and very careful and never key them into phishing. Yeah. This is actually my personal email, and so one of the data breaches that I've been a part of is MyFitnessPal. So MyFitnessPal, and see here email address, passwords, and usernames. So whilst they're doing phishing attacks and that side of their business, to your point before about departments, another department is trying to hack into these very, very large corporates where all the data is. And they have counter terrorism kind of departments as well. So that battle's going on that we're oblivious to. If they can get, and Sony's been breached, it's not that they do a great job. They really do. MyFitnessPal, etc. They do a great job, but it's an ongoing battle. So MyFitnessPal in 2018 leaked 144 million accounts. Now I didn't know that. And if I was using, which I was, if I was using that email and password in MyFitnessPal for other services, that email and password combination is in a database on the dark web and is being purchased and tried with automated software across things like Facebook, LinkedIn, Microsoft 365, Gmail, all of those.
So listen, I think we've talked a decent amount around what cybercrime can look like, how it's run as a business, all those elements to it. And I'm sort of mindful that we've got a limited time. So what can we talk about in terms of business continuity and I guess counteracting some of this activity?
Yeah, look, I think it's a subject we could talk about all day, and it's part of the point. It's a big subject. So one of the things I think is this is happening to all businesses in my view, and this is very normal and this is very correct. We're moving from a traditional space to a modern workplace. And in one of the HRA conferences, I did a talk on modern workplace and that transition. And one of the slides I had, which I don't have with me, looked at, we used to have an inbox, and so now we have an inbox. We used to have a trash can, so we made a trash can. We used to send letters, so we made email. We used to have a desktop, so we created a virtual desktop. We transitioned from that very, very physical pen and paper and trash can world, and we emulated it inside Windows and Mac. We created that virtual space. We're going through another shift. So all of those things were very me, very, very us. We're moving to, we're just transitioning along that pathway now to shared services. So the old way that the businesses run, they had all your services in the building. To enable people to work externally or flexibly, we need to enable remote access, which means that we take control for security and access and performance. How large your internet access is if you've got everyone coming into your building. We've got power and cooling responsibilities. This again, business continuity components. We don't want the server to go down if we've got people accessing it and working from it. You've got the physical security. You've got redundancy. If the power supply and the PC fails, you're off the air. How do you continue to operate? And so this is that. But mind you, those things are cheaper to run. High purchase, cheap to run. What we generally do is we buy them infrequently. So an organisation will spend $500,000, $50,000, depending on the size, on some equipment, and they'll sweat that asset as long as they can, which puts them into a, and the longer it goes on, the greater the risk. The modern workplace is where we now use an end user device that's fairly meaningless to connect to online services via any connection. And so that's where we get the concept of anywhere, any device, any time from. Okay, that's the flexibility. We've had a workforce demand for quite some time to have a more flexible working environment. Businesses haven't been able to do that, which has led to the constraint of having office space, getting everybody on trains into the city, the mad rush at 5 o'clock still. All of that really is because our working environment was physical still, and it was in a premise. There's no need for that to happen. So, and this is the trend of businesses moving to more flexible working arrangements, lower cost of employment, distributed workforces. We've had talent move from Sydney to Melbourne, and Nick works from home. He's our GM. He works from home in our business. He's got a home environment, home office, all decked out. We didn't lose the talent because he wanted to move states. So in that modern workplace, we've got zero infrastructure responsibility. It's a shared infrastructure, which means that you've got far greater investment and monitoring on redundancy, cooling, upgrading, patching, general security, where we might have, I love to go physical virtual to translate for people. Rather than you can afford one security guard on the front door, these organisations can afford a whole security team with different layers and different kinds of detection and undercover police and all that kind of concept, because they're sharing resources. So as we move to that modern workplace, that enables the workplace flexibility, and it's cheaper to own. That's a really important message for me. Traditional is cheaper to run ongoing, but you've got a capital outlay, and what we don't factor in is risk. The modern workspace is cheaper to own.
And so what are some of the basics? So in this new environment, what are some of the basics we can talk about in terms of?
So in terms of, I threw a few things to talk about in terms of business continuity basics. So we use cloud-based services so that someone else is looking after the availability and performance. Okay, so rather than us having to enable something to work from somewhere else, rather than us having to figure out, well, how do we use our phone system? How do I print? Well, they've got a physical desktop. How do we use that? We now start to implement cloud first. I know people have a heap of concerns about them. My honest view is it's just a learning exercise to go through, and to learn that that cloud is better. Okay, there's risks, but it's better. It's better on whole. So we move to cloud-based services, so they're more readily available. So they're better secured, and again, we need to look after our credentials. Single sign-on is really important for that. As we move to more systems that are controlled by other people, our credentials become a higher risk. So we need to think about how we manage integrate single sign-on. That allows you to have one password, let's say, for Microsoft 365, and then use that password in other things that will honor your Microsoft 365 connection. Okay, so they've got strong trust between them. If I'm logged on to Microsoft 365, the system that links to that can say, oh, I can see that that we are connected via Office 365 properly, not like Gmail, but properly. And I'll honor Microsoft 365 said you're a credible person. So I'll let you in. Okay, and that means you don't have a password for that other environment. I think laptops and docking stations are real now. We would have, most of our customers are were already ordering laptops with docking stations. You still get the nice 32-inch screen with a real keyboard and mouse. But if I need to go, or when I need to go and work from somewhere else, I unplug my laptop from my dock, and I put that in my bag, and I take my Office with me. The cloud-based phone systems which you've implemented, I think that's been around quite some time now. So that's a big part of business continuity. You don't need, it doesn't matter where you are. You can log in from home at 8 o'clock at night or at 7 in the morning and answer a phone or make a phone call. I know people moved to their mobile phones and no issue, but you're not advertising your mobile phone on your website. You can't transfer from your mobile phone to Dispatch or to anybody else. It's a poor substitute in productivity terms and in customer service terms.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then Teams and Zoom, I think we're going to see a big change there. We know how quickly their share price went up. I think that what a lot of people mightn't realise yet is Microsoft 365 is the way to buy Office, your productivity suite, and with that you get a lot of business continuity tools included. You get OneDrive that puts your storage, all of your data, onto a secure location that's available from other devices and from other locations. We get Teams, which is the ability to virtually meet. It won't replace. We had a great conversation in the YPN last week, and I think that we generally had a conversation about will we return to previous operations. In my view, no way. We will be on planes less. Great for the economy, great for our bottom line. Great for the environment and great for our bottom line, and great for our own personal relationships. We'll be home. So we won't forego personal interaction, but we'll meet more regularly virtually.
Yeah.
So those web-based or internet-based services allow us to operate that from any location. Yeah.
And in terms of, I guess, so we talk about some business continuity tactics. What about basics in terms of cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think the link here is really important. I'm sure there's some people who've heard me go through that and heard cloud safer and heard cloud phone and these kinds of things that created some anxiety or some disbelief. The security is shifted. I, as an expert, I'm here to tell you it is better. What's changed is our perception of it. There was a perception, and I did this very recently with a company in Canberra. We went through a risk assessment with them, and they were frightened at the end of it. And mind you, they shouldn't have been surprised. I was there. The board called me in because they'd had 2 data breaches in 12 months. And so we have this concept that if it's in our building, it's safer. What we don't factor in is your staff are already using online services. And if you're not embracing online services, you're being left behind and you're not being able to use Teams and other services. So therefore your staff will find the easier way, right? So we just have to shift our security. It's moving away from what people refer to as perimeter. So we're moving away from locks on the doors and locks on the windows and security guards and dogs and security patrols and alarm systems. We're moving to identity. Someone else is looking after all of that other perimeter defense for us. It is secure. The only way in now is through the front door. And what we need to be very careful of is that we take extra care about our keys, because the only way in to our data in the cloud is to have our keys. And if we're careless and we leave our keys laying around, or we hand copies of our keys to other people, they can impersonate us and walk in. So in terms of some basic security areas about that shift, about that change, one thing that's very important is to use up-to-date software, ensure it's patched. Windows 7, for example, Windows 7 is discontinued by Microsoft, has been for some time. Anybody who's using any Windows 7 device is already running an extremely high risk. The viruses have moved on, or tools. The tools have moved on. They can now exploit Windows 7 pretty easily, and Microsoft has not been patching Windows 7 for quite some time. Same as Windows 10. Windows 10 is good. You must patch it. Okay? It must be constantly patched. Heard a fantastic saying that really resonated with me yesterday, which was a vaccine is terrific, but it's useless unless you're vaccinated. And so it's okay that Microsoft are watching and running large teams of cyber defense, but if we don't follow their lead and adopt the patches and do the things they suggest, we're walking around not inoculated or not immune.
Yeah, understood.
Passwords is a really interesting one. And this is I guess twofold, Nick. The first thing is that there's a password database which is growing and growing and growing. I'm sorry to say, they know your pet's name. And they also know you're likely to put 0, 1, an exclamation mark on the end of it. And they also know you're likely to substitute an A for an at. So I don't think that's fooling anybody.
Yeah.
So the best security now is long passwords. The second part of it is computers have gotten faster. Where it used to take a long time to brute force calculate, think of spinning the dials on a 3-pin lock. It takes us ages to go through 1,000 combinations. It used to take a computer a while to do that too, not anymore. So I don't care what your password is. If it's 8 characters or less, I can crack it in minutes. We count that in minutes, not hours. As you add a 9th, a 10th, and an 11th character, the combination exponentially grows. We start talking in years. It's just not worth it. They give up. It's not valuable. The long words. So a password like "I like black and white cats" is actually a stronger password than 6 made-up characters that you'll never remember.
Yeah, understood.
Second piece of advice around that's come through is some companies probably have change your password regularly. We've gone away from that as an industry. The reason is that we found it was counterproductive. Changing your password actually creates a problem for you, and you're actually the problem in the first place. So it's actually better to have one, or not necessarily one, but a long passphrase that you can remember easily and it's hard to break, and get you to take care of it. So we don't change passwords as often anymore. The advice is to change it caused by an event. If you're anxious, you might have given it away, change it. If you've had a data breach, change all of your passwords in the organization. But trigger it by a problem, don't trigger it by a clock.
Yeah, understood.
I'll skip to Password Manager. Password Manager is the way to make that easier for us. I've used the Password Manager for about 12, 15 years now. The concept, really simple, is actually kind of single sign-on. I use one really strong password for my Password Manager, and then it remembers my really tricky, I even get it to generate them for me, but it remembers these really long, complicated passwords that I'll never remember, and it logs on to my web services for me. So when I go to my banking, I log on to my Password Manager, and then it pops up with a little icon next to the login for the bank. I hit the button, and my really, really long, super encrypted thing keys in. Two-factor, very important, of course. My banking software is anything where there is two-factor, I have two-factor enabled. I've got two-factor enabled with Gmail. I've got two-factor enabled with Xero.
Same. Same.
Anywhere it's available, you need to use it. Even that's improved. It won't ask you for your two-factor all of the time, just occasionally. Hey, look, I haven't heard from you in 14 days. Is it still you? Just checking. Right. So that style of it. Mail security is one I wanted to focus on quickly. It's the major threat vector. Again, your credentials are the key to compromising your system. So as we've got better systems and more flexible systems, they're much harder to breach. The easy way through is through you. So mail is the way to get to you. Australia is a high target because we're naturally a very trusting society. We like to help each other. We're very, very genuine as a country. And so we tend to not be as discerning, or what's the word for it, suspicious, I suppose, as we could be. So mail security and cyber awareness training are two very important ways that we can improve the defenses of the individual, which is the weak link. And I think a very, very, very important part of your cybersecurity basics is regular security assessments. So how are we, the industry moves, how do we look? We entered Password Manager a while ago, we bought a new firewall a while ago. How are we looking? Well, people don't attack firewalls anymore. They've moved on to attacking you through this. yeah, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned previously that you'd done some security assessments for a company, and they were quite frightened by it. And it's, at the national office, we've undertaken security assessment, with Hotline IT, and it was interesting. It was an interesting report to read, and there was a lot of things that we sort of jumped on really quickly based on those recommendations.
Well, if you don't mind me sharing, Nick, we did one 18 months ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we did one more recently, and the difference between them is stark. I mean, you compared to your peers, the recent review that we had was excellent. Right? It had some things that you can do, but from an overall assessment point of view, you'd made significant gains. The term is hardening. You'd hardened your defences considerably.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you can't be lax about keeping those defences as well, because, as you said, it's a business. It's always evolving. It's very sophisticated, and you need to keep on top of it. So there's a few things probably we are running out of time. Key takeaways, and then I might sort of just mention a few things for people in terms of offerings that are available, and go from there.
Sure. Yeah. Look, I think one thing that is definitely a theme for me is all businesses. All we've done is we've adopted the changes that we were always going to make. We've just done it faster without the usual consideration. Right? We're already on this journey. There's a great phrase that who's leading the innovation in your organisation, the CEO, the CFO, or COVID. So we've all been given this big push from behind to get our act together for business continuity. And so what we need to do now is we need to just we're through crisis. We're through crisis response. We now need to take a breath and start to assess everything, see whether they're going to stay, whether we need to, if we bought something temporarily, whether we now need to buy something more permanent, or build something more permanent, or enable something more permanent, and assess what our risks are. So if we enable people to work from home, did we enable VPNs? Did we enable multi-factor? Or did we turn that stuff off because we just had to survive?
Yeah.
Totally get it. We've increased our risk to be able to continue to operate. It's time that we take care of that.
Yeah, fantastic. So thanks very much for joining in on this one, Jason. And what I'll probably mention as well is that so the risk assessment that we undertook, the security assessment that we undertook with Hotline IT, it is actually freely available to all members, I believe. Is that correct, Jason?
Yep. We've got one that we've sanitised one down that's pretty low effort from everybody, so we're able to get that out to more people.
Yeah. So listen, if there are any members that are interested in undertaking a free security assessment, relatively quick, relatively easy, and get some good insights, please do get in contact with Jason. Jason, thank you for coming on and talking to us about this. And it could be a really long discussion as well. I'm really aware of that. But the good news is that we recorded it, and it is available to all of our members. If you want to pass this on to people within your organisation, please do that. If you want to pass it on to other members that you know of, please do that as well. It's super important that we protect the businesses in the hire industry, the access industry, and the telehandler industry. We really value the members that we do have. And I believe we'll be making a lot of this slide deck and some of the other assets available online as well. That's it for us. Thank you very much for joining us. Finally, I would encourage you to continue to log on to the upcoming webinars. I think we've got one coming up in December, which is going to be focusing on safety during the festive season. So I really encourage you to log on for that one. But that's it for us for now. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a great day and stay safe. Thank you.